Welcome to the November 6th meeting of the Historic Resources Board. Diana, would you please call roll?
Chair Bernstein.
Here.
Vice Chair Kohler.
Here.
Board Member Bao.
Here.
Board Member DeSecchio. Board Member Vandenberg.
Here.
Board Member McKinnon.
Here.
Board Member Wimmer. Here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First on our agenda this morning is oral communications. Members of the public may speak to any item not on the agenda with 3 minutes limits. Any members of the public like to do that? Seeing none, moving on to approval of minutes, August 21st, 2013. Any motion to amend or approve?
I move we approve the minutes.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, thank you. Next is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to new business. Public hearing, 1027 Bryant Street. Request by Fergus Garber Young Architects on behalf of John Tarleton and Jennifer Dearborn for Historic Resources Review Board review and recommendation of the rehabilitation and modifications to a multi-family residential building designated as a contributing building on the historic inventory located in the Professorville National Register Historic District, Zone District, Single Family Residential District R1. Shall staff have any report for us?
Yes, good morning, board members. Stephen Turner, Advanced Planning Manager. Staff is recommending that the board recommend to the Director of Planning and Community Environment and find that the project is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation as described within the staff report, subject to the conditions of approval in Attachment A. Board members, this is the first formal hearing for the project at 1027 Bryant Street. The board previously reviewed this project as a study session back earlier this year in June. The HRB reviewed the project. I heard a presentation from the applicant and was generally supportive of the overall direction. The staff report on page 9 provides an overview of the board's comments. Again, the board was generally accepting and agreeable of the changes. Much of the discussion focused on the second floor massing along the right side, perhaps an interior sunroom that is now a separate living unit that would not change as part of the proposed project, and board members spoke a little bit about that particular element that is retained within the project presented for you today, and so the board members may want to review that as well. The applicant will provide a detailed overview of the project, and so I'll leave the details to them. But essentially, the house is being used as a multifamily residential type of use. There are a number of units within the site. It's within an R1 zoning district, so typically only one unit would be allowed within the zoning district. But of course, the uses are grandfathered in, and that the building has been used in multifamily use for some time. The building also is not compliant with existing zoning. That's to be expected for a building of this age, constructed at a time when essentially Palo Alto really had no zoning requirements. Currently, the building is non-compliant for a number of items and would continue to be non-compliant for a number of items as well. The applicant has requested variances and exceptions for those items, new items that are to be constructed, but are not consistent with the zoning guidelines. The HRB does not have the purview to review those variances and those findings. Those are reviewed and decided upon by the director. So he will do that. The project also has undergone an individual review for the amount of new floor area and actually reconfigured floor area on the site. That the individual review guidelines and project has been reviewed by the city's consultant Arnold Mammarella and is found to be consistent with the individual review guidelines. Again, the IR guidelines are not within the purview of the Historic Resources Board, and so the board is not required to comment on that portion. The board is required to comment on the project's consistency with the Secretary standards. That is your purview. Staff has reviewed the project for consistency with those standards, and in the staff report, we provide a detailed analysis of the project consistency with each of the 9 standards. Staff is finding that the project is consistent with each of the 9 standards, and therefore, because of that, because of the individual review and consistency with those guidelines, staff is supportive of the project moving forward. So again, staff is recommending that the HRB find that the project is consistent with the standards and guidelines and make a recommendation for approval to the director. I should also note on page 5 that a few of the other items that the board may want to focus on, the demolition and construction of the various building projections around the site, the location and construction of the new turret that was there when the house was originally built, demolished, but is being proposed to return as part of this project. The restoration of the front porch and retention and improvements of the glazing that's adjacent to the front porch and retention of that second-story mass above the southwest corner, as we talked about earlier, and of course the various materials shown on the materials board, which I think is available for review at this meeting. That concludes the staff report, and we can have the applicant make a presentation at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. For the members of the public, I just want to announce our normal process for our public hearing. So next will be the applicant presentation, 10 minutes limitation, or at the discretion of the board. Then Historic Resources Board questions of the applicant or staff. Any public comment, 5 minutes limitation per speaker. Applicant closing comments, 3 minutes. Close the public hearing, and then any motions and recommendations by the board, and then a final vote. So next will be applicant presentation. Welcome, if you can state your name for our recording, please.
Hi, good morning. I'm Prashita Patel. Thank you for the board for seeing us today. I know the board are already familiar with the project from the study session that we had in June. So I'd just like to provide a brief overview of the project scope. At the same time, discuss some of the components that we have changed from the feedback that we received. Oh, that's better. This is a key image that we have of the house, which was taken in 1900, soon after the house was built. And you can see that it was actually quite a simple structure with punched openings, with selective decorative elements concentrated at the front, with the turret, the front porch, and the turned columns. From what we know about the house as developed, we've taken a lot of information from Sanborn maps. And you can see by 1924, the house already had the front extension and a one-story rear extension, and the cottage was already built by this time. And by 1949, the house was designated as having 3 apartments and already split at that point. And this is an image that we have of the house in 1999. And by this time, the house was already separated into 9 living units. And you can see the drastic change that has occurred over this time. The turret has been removed, and then we have this extension on the side of the house that has completely subsumed the front porch. This was the condition that the house was when our client bought the property in 2005. And they've been taking great care to make some amendments over time. You can see that the front porch, the turned columns have been re-exposed. The railing, you can see that there is this unfortunate junction of the extension that has been tackled, and the skirt has been reinstated. And our client would now like to take this forward and look at the house as a whole and see how they can unify these extensions that have occurred over time, that are sometimes poorly constructed and sometimes not in the language of the house. So it's important to iterate that this is not a restoration project. We are taking the house as it is existing and seeing how we can improve and unify the whole so it can speak as one language, and also to improve its contribution to the historic district of Professorville, to the value and the richness of the district. So this is our proposal, and you can immediately see the benefit of removing this front porch area and taking the house back to the original elevation. We are reinstating the turret, and you can see here. And a lot of the conversation, as Stephen mentioned in June, was regarding this extension at the front. And we discussed how we can approach the extension to make it feel as light as possible, make it feel as part of the porch. When we presented it in June, we had double-hung windows on the second story, which have an inherent mass, which we are now proposing to use divided lights, which are much lighter. The porch roof continues across to make it feel like the porch continued across the front, and we're proposing full-height glazing, where you can see there is now solid wall. And on the second floor, this delicate porch will form almost like a sleeper porch area. The other thing to note about this elevation is that we had comments in June about retaining existing glazing as much as possible. There is an existing window which we think was historic, original to the house within this porch, and we're proposing to reuse it on the ground floor at the entry space, and that would mean that all at the ground floor your approach to the building is with historic glazing that is more in character with the house. Well, single pane glazing, this will be new. Looking at the rear elevation, there was an extension at some point in time that left an unfortunate roof line condition, and we're proposing to pull forward the ridge line to mimic the slopes of the front of the house. There's also a band of windows that are in poor condition, and they are mismatched, and we're proposing to replace them with new double-hung windows that are in proportion of the existing double-hungs with the house. The ground floor is proposed to remain as existing. And looking at the side elevation, you can see the real benefit of introducing this full-height glazing at the front porch, which really makes this feel like this was once one area, and the light extension on top. And we're also addressing existing extensions by essentially creating two wings that are very simple and similar in mass. Just to briefly look at the floor plans, you can see that the ground floor, the main changes are to fenestration. On the second floor, we are pulling out the rear extension to provide a master bathroom and a master closet. You can see a new staircase up to the attic space, and that the front porch has been removed. Looking at the roof plan, you can see the roof line that is existing at the rear has now been replaced with slopes that match that at the front of the house. And in terms of materiality, we brought this materials board, if I could hand that to the board. There are several areas that we are proposing obscured glazing. At the front stair, at the porch, at the master bathroom, and there's a new decorative oval window, so we are proposing to use water glass. In terms of the color scheme, we are proposing to maintain the existing fresh beige color with white for the trim. And also we're going to look at any deteriorating siding and replace to match existing. So we have the 9-inch shiplap at the bottom, 7 inches, and then the shingles up above. And I'd just like to reiterate that the project will greatly improve the streetscape of Bryant Street, and not only will it provide a positive contribution to Professorville, it reinstates some historic elements that have been lost over time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rashid. And next would be any questions that the board has of the applicant or staff. Beth.
First of all, I should disclose that yesterday I visited the property, and it just so happened that the owner Jennifer drove in, and I did speak with her just in general terms, and particularly about how many living units had been in this property. Then in terms of questions, now then, I think that my main questions have to do with the new windows and those that are being retained, and you've answered some of those questions. Now then, the little round window on the second floor is a new feature?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then are you retaining all of the windows currently in the turret area?
Yes, those two remain as existing. Yeah.
All right. And what about the doors? Are they retained?
Yes, they're to stay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for spending all this time with us and coming first for the study session. I have just a couple of questions. Is the circular stair existing?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Do you have any idea when it was added?
I don't know, I can ask the owner.
9, okay.
9 years ago, yeah.
I'm, of course, as anyone who comes to these meetings knows, a big proponent of insulated glass, but I'm curious to know why there's going to be obscure glass and where that would be. It's on the stairway. I see the description of it.
It's, sorry, can I answer?
Just where, what drove that decision?
It was a suggestion put to us by the planning department, Arnold, mainly because we're proposing full height glazing in a living unit on the ground floor, and we're concerned that it might end up being covered because it obscures privacy. So by introducing obscured glass there's more chance of it remaining as a glazed element.
Okay.
And where are those obscure glass?
So I see on the color board it's going to be in the stairway, which is on the side, and that it would be in the front. Was there any art glass in this building that you know of?
Not originally, no.
Right. So this is a new addition of an architectural feature. Okay. How many units are going to be in the building when it's all done?
There's 3 as existing, including the cottage, that plus the main house.
So 2 in the main building.
2 in the main house, yeah.
Oh.
And then finally, I note that on the plans that you're going to add cedar shingles back to the building, which of course would have been the material used on the roof when it was built. Sadly, because of fire codes, all cedar products have to be impregnated with a chemical that diminishes their life. As a former builder, I'm comfortable having asphalt shingles go back on these buildings because they're actually a better product and will last longer and protect them. But if owners want to have cedar shingles, it's fine with me. But just would like to make it public that it seems to me that's not an incompatible material on the building, even though it wasn't there to begin with. That's all I have.
I just want to follow up on the water glass, I guess you call it. It's a very nice material. On the where would those show up? Is it on the sides or the front, or?
If you look at the new proposed glazing at the front porch on the ground floor, that will be the water glass.
You mean the lower on the lower right side, the arch top window there?
Yeah, those pits.
So that entire room has got this kind of glass? And that was Arnold's suggestion?
Well, use an obscured glass, and we were trying to look at different glazing options that keep it as clear as possible while providing some obscurity, as opposed to using something that is toned.
Yeah, it's one of the better non-obscure glass I've seen. I'm seeing Arnold today, so I know all about Arnold. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein. I had one question. It's mentioned in here, Dames and Moore, their survey, they still considered as contributing to the district, the property. Do you happen to know what the rating was assigned to the property? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I don't think there was. I can look. I've got the original, the document in my folder for how it, the register folder. But
Chair Bernstein, the building is not a category structure. It was determined to be a contributing building to Professorville. All of the buildings essentially in Professorville are either contributing or on the inventory. But for the inventory itself, this building does not appear on that. I don't.
yeah, that's
Okay,
correct. There
thank
is
you.
no listing.
Okay. Any other board members?
Yeah, I got another question.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. I noticed on the southwest corner of when I looked through the plans, it took me a while to find it, but it appears that you're proposing a standing seam metal roof above the porch on the top right there, probably because it's a shallow pitch. Is that
It's shallow pitch, but we're looking to minimize the profile of that roof. So it feels like an addition, like we were, it is the overall aim.
Is that going to be visible from the street, you think?
No,
or is
you
it
can
too-
see from this image, that roof of that area is not visible. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
And the other thing I was going to ask about is the attic space mentions it's going to be used as an office. And when I looked at the elevation in the attic, it looks like it's pretty minimal in height, head height. I think I saw 5 feet up to the ceiling height. I just questioning, how practical is it as an office? It doesn't seem, unless you got a child using it as an office.
I think at the ridge it's about 7 feet 6.
At the peak, yeah. But
yeah. And we've taken it down to 3.6 at the sides, 3 feet 6. It's a small space, but it will be usable.
Does the building code allow that minimal height?
Yeah, the project has been reviewed for compliance with building and zoning code. Actually, planning has had a long discussion with the applicants about the use of the attic space. The way that it's currently configured, it's acceptable to staff, seems to be consistent with zoning and building code. And so because of that, we encourage the project to move forward for review.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Any other board members, questions to the applicant and staff?
Well, the only, in studying the elevations.
Actually, we need your mic on.
Sorry. Is that better? Just in studying the elevations and looking at what's typical with the style and what you're proposing, the only area that I know it's really minor, and it's not street facing, but on the north elevation and towards the left, I know that you're reducing the area on the second floor, but so you're having to roof the area that's on the first floor. I just think that gable end seems, I don't know, out of place to me for some reason. Whereas when it was a 2-story structure, you had the continuation of the upper roof over that area. Maybe if you could drop that same type of roof, making it like a shed roof instead of a gable, kind of come off that wall and maybe slope it or something. That seems more true to that style. I don't know why that's
We did
popping out
look
to
at
me.
it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you did.
We looked at that as originally, and if you look at the east elevation, if there was a shed roof there, it left
Right. I do see that.
an awkward junction when we're trying to emphasize the proportions of the of the east elevation to be symmetrical. And by using this configuration, the roof allowed the skirt a good place to end, and then you had the pitch. The other aspect was that the shed roof protruded further into the property, the boundaries. So by keeping it minimal, you're minimizing that overhang. So that was our intention.
Roger.
Yeah, I'm going through the drawings here. Maybe you can help me. Oh, wait, here we go. No? Is there a site plan? I'm looking.
2.0?
Oh, data number 2? It's not in the front, it's in the middle.
Right here, third page.
No, that's not a site plan. That's a survey.
It's as close as it gets.
If you look at A 2.0, there's a site plan.
Okay, so here's where the windows are, okay. So I was just looking here again at the obscure glass and the, oh, so those are second floor windows. Ground door. Because you're responding that Arnold was requiring this obscure glass because of privacy for the neighbor? Is that what he was saying?
Not for the neighbor, for the unit, because that's a ground floor unit there with a living room and a kitchen.
Oh, for people in
Within-
1027A?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for staff. Just a process question or a application. Why is there a variance and not a home improvement exception for these revisions?
I think the extent of their request for exceptions for this project exceeded the limits of a home improvement exception. If you might recall, a number of years ago, the council put some greater restrictions on the use of HIEs by putting specific maximums in terms of, say, setbacks, height, and daylight plane that could be used under the HIE process. Before that, it was pretty wide open that as long as the exceptions were related to more of a design characteristics and helping to retain an architectural style, then an HIE could be used. But there was a felt that that was being overused to some extent, and therefore more restrictions were placed on HIEs. So I believe that in this case, variances are being requested because of the nature of the exceptions being requested.
Thank you. A question for, is it Rashette?
Priscilla.
Rishila. I'm sorry.
Priscilla.
Priscilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you know, one of the important standards of the 10 standards for the rehabilitation standards is standard number 9, where the new work shall be differentiated from the old. Can you explain in your design how that important standard is met?
One thing to look at would be the window details that we've provided, where we've clearly tried to show you how we're differentiating the windows. The actual trim at the moment is very simple, so we're making very subtle changes. Point you to the page.
It's a page A 2.4, by the way.
Yes. By installing modern double-hung units, there is an inherent change in how the proportions of the windows would be using the double glazed, and the center style will be much wider. It's not, you can't build windows to the same proportions historically, so there will be a distinctive change between the historic windows and the original.
Great. Thank you. My next question is regarding the proposed glass. So this would be on the street-facing facade, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and then just to clarify, it would be under the first floor arched windows?
Yes.
Okay. And on the second floor windows also?
No, they don't.
Okay, right. And from the user of the building, so this the intent again was to privacy from the outside looking in?
Yes.
I can see you with this. Did the building owner requesting this at all or wanting this? Okay.
It's also, there is a spiral staircase where the glazing is, so the user would actually be set further back from the glazing itself.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you're actually further away from that glazing, there is a decent amount of obscurity provided.
Okay.
You need
Is what I'm thinking about it in the evening time, with this only, and someone in that space, I think the person would be noticed, I think. So that's my, yeah.
with the lights on inside, and if
Yeah,
it was, yes.
yeah.
They,
Okay, good. Well, I will be making comments about this when we come to the commentary period. Okay, those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you so much. Okay. Oh, yes, there is one more question. Mr. Bauer.
Just one follow-up question. What was your original proposal for the glass in those windows that's now scheduled to have
we
water?
originally had clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next would be public comment. If anyone, members of the public, like to speak on this agenda item, I see no cards. Moving it back to the board now. The applicant closing comments, if you care to make any other closing comments at this point before we close the hearing. So.
Just thank you for listening to us today.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing and then bring it back to the board for any motions or recommendations by the board. So, okay, I will, Beth, go ahead.
Just as a basic comment, I see this project as cleaning up a number of very inappropriate additions and poor quality materials and all sorts of things that because the basic image of the house was a very simple structure with simple lines, and the additions were put on willy-nilly. And so I think that there's great value in this, and there's great value in the fact that it is being returned much more to a single residency than having 9 living units in it. And so this is, to me, a step in the right direction. And I wondered, looks like that might simplify some parking issues to not have quite so many different families living there, but that's not within our purview. So that basically I see it as a very good project.
Actually, I have the same feeling. This project is cleaning up a building that was altered in an unfortunate way in its life, not atypical of many buildings of its age. In terms of the 4 issues that staff has asked us to consider on page 5, I'm completely comfortable with demolition and the construction of these new appurtenances to the building. I think the turret location looks to me to be close to where it was before. It will be differentiated just because it's new and not old. I don't really have a comment about the front porch, although I am troubled by the fact that staff has added this architectural glass that would not have been in this building, is not typical of this building, and I think it's inappropriate. Staff moved in that direction. unless, of course, they're on the architectural team. I don't think they are. So I'm not in support of that glass being in the building. Also, I think the approach you've taken to try to match the existing design, but differentiate, especially that detail on the windows, which is pretty extraordinary considering how much time it takes to create that, is very thoughtful, and I think that's a very nice piece of information for the board members. So in general, I'm in full support of this with the exception of that art glass.
Yeah, I think it's quite a nice project. That house has been always drive by it. I worked at several homes there. But this is an interesting conundrum of a lot of different issues here. And I tend to agree with everything previously said. And I'm thinking of suggesting that the glasswork in that stairwell be up to the owner. If they want the obscure glass, fine. If they don't, then it ought to be, to me, just clear glass, because I agree with David that it's, the obscure glass they used in those days was, I think, white paint. I don't know if they actually, huh?
Christian Science Church.
Oh, yeah, or stained glass, actually, so. But no, it's a very successful project. It's a kind of an, it's probably not a house you would design, but the way you look at it, it's, you know, it's kind of got some interesting features to it. So it would be really, I think it's going to be a fabulous looking house.
Michael?
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything that's been said to date here. I do also believe that it certainly is an improvement over what was there today. And I think it really enhances its status as a contributor to the district, more so than it currently is.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the main end result we're looking for here. It does not go in the opposite direction. It's enhancing the district. So I'm supportive of the project.
What I really am appreciating is just, I think taking away that second story porch. I was there yesterday, late afternoon, and that's what felt, it just has so much visual mass from the very front, just because that porch continues that tall that ceiling wall, or that, excuse me, the front wall. So I think that really gives it some visual interest, and bringing back the turret that's sort of iconic of that style. I don't know if you really need to introduce a different kind of roof. I think there's so much going on with the different textures, the different window styles. I mean, I think maybe keeping that roof the same as what the main roof is going to be. And the glass doesn't really bother me. I think sometimes that water glass, it makes you think of, you know, the historic glass and things like that. I think it could be, give it some more character. However, there's so much going on that it doesn't necessarily need another textural element. But overall, I think it's beautiful. I think it'll be a nice project.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the applicant for the fine tunings that you've presented to us based on the discussion we had during the study session. So thanks very much for that. In particular, the delicacy and the lightness of the second floor porch revision there, using the divided lights rather than the double hungs. So I think that helps reduce the impact of the existing situation there. I also have comments and concerns about the new texture of the glass compared to the rest of the windows that won't have the texture on it, or the kind of distortion that this sample has. There are a lot of different elements on this design. I'm looking at your proposed rendering here of flat tops, slope roofs, sloping roofs, gables, hips, turrets, round walls, straight walls, and I think is pretty clear from the perspective presentation there. Even the turret itself has a rectangular on the bottom and round on the top. A lot of different things going on, and then to add another textural element of a different glass compared to the other glass, I think is a move toward visual distraction rather than visual attraction. I guess I'd like to make a motion, but Beth, please go ahead.
First of all, I neglected to comment on the turret, and when I was talking with the owner, they have found all of the base elements of that turret, and there is the historic photo, which is one of our usual reasons for restoring a feature. And so I think that there's very, very good evidence that this was what was on the building when it was first built, and adds a lot of visual interest. And I think that's...
Okay. Thank you. And just finalizing my comments is that under the discussion items in our staff report, page 5 of 9, just go through those 4 items here. The demolition and construction of the various building projections, I support what the applicant's plans are showing. The location and construction of the turret, I'm in 100% support of that aspect of it. And then number 4, skipping 3 for a second, the various materials as shown in material boards for new addition to be compatible and differentiated from the original historic structure. I think there's, you mentioned the windows, and that's clearly a differentiation. And clearly everything is compatible. The restoration, number 3 of our discussion items, the restoration of the front porch and retention improvements of the glazing adjacent to the front porch. And retention of the second floor mass. Second floor mass, again, I think you've responded in a very good and sensitive way to make it more lightly appearing. That brings me then to the glass. And again, you heard my comments that, and just looking at the sample, if someone's inside the house and ascending the stairs, I think the person inside is going to know that the outside can see that motion here. So I would not consider this privacy glass. And again, it looks kind of clear to me, not obscure. So my comment would be then, I think that's visually distraction and attraction versus clear. So I'd like to entertain, see if motion, if there is any support for a second. Michael, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, just one further comment on the glass. You may want to consider the German restoration glass if you want to get an aged look to it. Be more appropriate. It's less opaque than this glass.
Okay, yeah. And then so it'd be different than the rest of the glass on the street-facing facade.
It just has a little bit of an aged look. It's got some waviness to it.
Okay.
Very, very delicate.
Okay. Thanks for that comment. The overriding feature of this house, I think, and I think what the applicant has been doing with support of the owner is, actually, I think you're presenting a good gift to the street by removing that second floor porch area and the retaining the returning the turret and the main gable. So I think it's from the overall, you've done a really great job. So I'll try with a motion and see if there's any support or any amendments, unless anyone else would like to make a motion.
I'm confused. Do we have a motion on the table?
Not yet.
Oh,
No.
so you're going to entertain a motion? All right.
Or make a motion.
Board Member Bernstein, just
Yes.
maybe staff can make a comment too. The board certainly has the ability to make more than one motion. The board may want to consider the issue of the glass first, maybe perhaps separately from the main house, and then make a separate motion on the overall project itself if the board feels so inclined.
Okay. All right.
So, Chair
David.
Bernstein, I'd like to move that
Yeah.
I'd like to move that the decision about the glass in the front of the building be left to the owner and the owner's architect. And if they want to proceed with the glasses proposed by staff, that's fine. But if they want to go back to their original proposal, I'm uncomfortable about staff doing architectural design on these projects. Also, I have that glass in my house, and it is completely see-through. It does not provide privacy, so there will be drapes behind it if you want privacy. So with that, that's a little bit complicated, but the motion is that the owner and the owner's architect be able to choose between this glass and just clear glass to match the rest of the building.
And as a full disclosure, I have used the German restoration glass in my own personal house as part of the restoration of some older windows. I wanted to get the look of the older house on it, as it does to the job.
Okay. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second for the motion?
I will second this motion.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm going to, let's see. The applicant is not here, but, oh, okay, the architects are here. Yes, good, okay. Oh, and the owner's here, yeah. Oh, hi. All right, good. Let's see, is it fair to reopen the public hearing if the, yeah, huh?
We're giving them the option.
Okay, give them the option, okay. All right, I guess we're ready to vote on the motion. Good. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to leave the glass to the discretion of the owner, signal by saying, is it, yes, Roger? Did you have a comment?
So it's either the glass that's in your hand or glass to match the rest of the house. You're not saying that they can just use any frosted glass. Yeah.
So just to be clear, it's either that glass or it's clear glass to match the rest of the house. Not any glass, just not that.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Would it be possible to look at alternative glass and also present that to the board? Or
Let's see, right now the motion is either this glass or clear glass, and not any other alternatives glasses. Yeah.
I would be willing to amend my motion to a glass that's reviewed, but I would have to warn you that that will only ensnarl you in more staff time and probably delays. Staff's got a lot of work, and if you want to go down that path, that would be acceptable to me, although I think the reason that I'm uncomfortable with that glass is it's, as Martin said, Chair Bernstein said, it's a new texture, and so less interest in that.
And then if there's a glass,
okay, please, I'll just remove the comment, and would between the clear glass and the water glass will be fine with us.
okay. So the motion is the options either this water glass sample or clear glass. Okay, okay. All right. All those in favor of that, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
How many? We got 5? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to vote no on that motion. That motion passes on a 5-1 vote. Okay. Yeah.
I'd be happy to amend my motion if you would join us, if I understood why you, if you care to share with us why.
Yeah, well, I will. Again, this is not providing, I don't think this is providing any kind of privacy. And it's adding a texture that, if the overall impact of this house on the neighborhood is to look at the turret and then the revised front facade, there are 12 different visual items on the street. And why add a 13th modification? Let's just get some kind of consistency to try to, I think even as the applicant's words were, to make it a more cohesive design. Well, one way to have some cohesiveness is having something uniform. And glass texture is one way to make everything uniform. There are plenty of varieties here. That's why I voted no on the motion.
Okay. Well, in an effort to provide unanimous support by the board, which is what the council, I've been told many times, likes, I think we could just leave it at this. It passed, and let the owners make the decision. I understand. I hear you're saying. I hear that you're saying you don't want that glass on it, and I don't either, but I would let the client or the owner make that decision.
Okay, well, the motion passed on a 5-to-1 vote, so that stands. Okay, good. Okay, next, any additional motions by the board? Yeah.
I'm sorry, did it include a statement in terms of the Secretary of Interior standards?
That'd be our next motion, yeah.
Okay, so,
Good.
good, all right. thank
Okay, would any board member like to make a, yeah, Michael?
I'll take a crack at it. I'd like to make a motion that we find the project to be compliant with the Secretary of the Interior standards, and that we also endorse the recommendation of staff on the attachment that has conditions of approval. That's attachment A. And I guess those two things, compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards we find, and that attachment A be part of the conditions of approval.
It's been second. Motion made. Any second on the motion? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? So.
No, I would just like to thank staff for a very clear delineation of the Secretary of Interior standards, which I very much support.
Great. Okay, I think any other comments on the motion? Okay, so, and then who seconded the motion? So. Beth seconded, great, good, okay. All right, all in favor of the motion signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously with those present. And thank you very much for an excellent presentation. We look forward to the gift from the street being revealed. So, good. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you to the owner for all their work.
Good. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to move on to the second item on our agenda today. And that will be election of chair and vice chair. Staff, do you have any?
Yeah, it's at the typical time of year whereby we put the request for the election of chair and vice chair on the agenda. Usually every October or November is when the change is made. Well, I think, yes, I mean, certainly, I think last year, well, Martin has been ably serving as chair, I think, for the last few years. But per, I think, the bylaws of the HRB, we want to try to get the opportunity for a new chair and vice chair if the board so chooses. The staff did not have any prior discussions with the chair or vice chair about this. We certainly do not have to have the election today. If the board is not comfortable to do so, we can put that off to our next meeting. But certainly the item for discussion is on the agenda, and we can have any comments.
Beth?
You know,
I have a disclosure to make before we go into this item. I spoke to board member Pat DeSico about 2 days ago, and she expressed great concern that she was going to be unable to attend this meeting. She needed to fly yesterday to attend to some business with her properties, and was very, very sorry to miss this meeting. She asked if it would be possible to delay the election to our next HRB meeting in order for her to participate. The position of the chair of the HRB is a very serious responsibility, and our preservations ordinance states that the vice chair will preside and perform the duties in the absence or disability of the chair. Since these elections are important, it seems very, very important that all the members be present for this decision. Therefore, I move that the election of chair and vice chair be continued to the agenda of the next meeting of the HRB.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'll second that, too.
Oh, you, go ahead.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. It's been seconded twice. Okay. All right. Any discussion on the motion?
I think it's, as Beth has said, it's important that all of us, all 7 of us, take the time and have an opportunity to participate. And I don't think we suffer by having Chair Bernstein continue. He's done a very good job, and he can continue to do that. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, I mean, in the future, we could sort of, because we're sort of, well, not like the council, which meets regularly, we're semi-random. Like, you could, I don't know how many meetings we've had in the last 2 years. Right. You could almost have a vote after you've chaired for so many meetings, maybe, or something like that. Because if we selected a chairman every year, we sometimes only have 3 or 4 meetings in a year, 5 meetings. So it's, anyway, that's only my thought. I agree that we should postpone to everyone's here.
We expect to hold our next meeting at the first meeting in December. So we wouldn't have a meeting in 2 weeks, but our next meeting will be early December.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion signal by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Next is status reports on historic projects and sites. Any reports?
I don't have any a laundry list of projects to discuss. However, I did want to mention that staff is keeping our eye on the continuing restoration of 564 University Avenue. Board members may recall earlier this summer, there was a subcommittee review of exterior colors for the building. The colors have been applied, and from at least staff's accounts, we're very pleased with with the progress of the restoration of 564 University. We are having continual discussions with the owner, with the contractor, with Garavalia Architecture, who is the city's representative, kind of historic consultant representative on this work. It appears that all of the work is being done per the previous agreements and per code, and we are looking forward to the project being finished and the green fence being removed so that everybody can see finally that building. It's been, gosh, probably 3 or 4 years now since work began on that building, and we're very excited to be close to the end of that project. Also, just to let the HRB know, the city, and you may have read, the city has placed an offer on the purchase of the post office building on Hamilton Avenue, the Burge Clark building that's there. We believe that there are probably 10 other offers for that building. So we think that we put in a very competitive offer. That offer is closed until we get determination on whether or not we made the cut for the next round of offers. But we think our offer will be competitive, and we hopefully will look forward to obtaining that building so that we can move folks out of very expensive office space across the street at the development center into the post office building. Over the long term, it certainly will save the city quite a bit of money to be able to do that. That's all the updates that I have at this point.
We all have good hopes on that building,
Yes.
and thanks to the city for that. Have you heard anything from the archivist of the Postal Department in terms of requested items?
I'll go back and check my notes. My sense is that everything that the city had looked at with the Palo Alto Historical Association is still there and is still available to us. My sense is that they have not made a decision yet on our ability to obtain those items that we would like, but I will provide an update to the board at the next meeting on that issue.
Yes, Michael.
Just going back to the post office, is that disposal being handled by GSA?
Yes, I believe it is.
Staff announcements.
Yes, just a couple of announcements. Board members may be aware that tomorrow is a Kind of a unique event. The City Council is hosting essentially a thank you and a recognition for all boards and commissions tomorrow evening. And the council felt very strongly that the boards and commissions of the city are really providing an extremely valuable service to the public, and that the boards and commissions as a group just have not received the recognition that they so deservedly deserve. Council is holding a recognition event tomorrow, and it's encouraged that all board members attend. Be a great opportunity to mix and mingle with other board members and with the council in a very informal kind of celebratory setting. So I would encourage all board members to attend that meeting. Do you know where the...
Lucy Stern.
At Lucy Stern Center, and I believe at 7 o'clock. Yeah.
Lucy Stern.
Yes. The other announcement is that the City Council is postponing our joint meeting with the HRB from December to February. It's yes. Good question, Board Member Kohler. No, so it would be for next year. And as we discussed at the retreat, I believe last month, there was a number of items that the council requested the HRB take a look at before our next retreat. And so I'd like to get with the chair and perhaps the new chair to discuss those items and maybe give some assignments to individual board members to do some follow-up and do some research work, so that when we do meet with council, we have good items to report back to them on those issues. Those are the only two announcements. I should say that Dennis Backlund is back with us. He was out ill for a number of weeks, but is looking good and healthy and strong, and we look forward to having him back attending board meetings in the future.
Great. Thank you. The list of suggested topics or questions for the council, is that list available yet? So.
Yes. It is, and I will email that to the board after this meeting. Yeah.
Thanks. Michael?
Any further information on the Hostess Center, MacArthur's Park?
Not any specific information on the MacArthur Park Hostess Center building. Most likely in early December, or if it gets continued into January, it's a possibility. But the city is kind of restarting the analysis and review of the 27 University site. That will be initiated by a public participation and review process. Council, in one of its criticisms of the previous project that was reviewed, was that the public was not brought in on board for early discussions about the opportunities at that site and opportunities for the hostess house. So the first step that we are taking is presenting council with a public participation plan and a request for a very kind of thorough professional type of involvement, where we would hire a consultant to help manage and promote public participation on 27 University. And so that consultant proposal will be going to council, we think, in early December, and that will essentially kind of kick off the new round of development review at 27 University. We don't have a specific project to review yet, so we just wanted to make sure that the public is thoroughly involved in this process as we move forward.
But will there be a chance for this board to make even some early statement as a full board vote on whether the building should remain in place or be moved?
Absolutely. The board is certainly, it's required for that project to come before the board. And my sense is that that will happen most likely in the spring of 2014. But there's just no sense of the project that would go on 27 University or any of the specific details about the site development itself, including the hostess house, whether or not it should be retained on site or moved to another location in Palo Alto.
But in fairness to applicants, that would be an important piece of information to have before they go to the huge expense of designing a project.
That's right.
And the HRB has not taken an official vote on it.
That's correct. What I can
We
do...
had a work study.
What I can do is check with the city manager's office to see if there's an opportunity for the HRB to provide an early input. Perhaps it wouldn't be a binding recommendation at this point because there's no project essentially to review, but the HRB, I think, can, if it's appropriate to do so, make a recommendation early so that future applicants will know at least the Historic Resources Board position on this building.
Chair, can I, Stephen, to follow up on this? Could that building be moved without or relocated without this board making some statement about that?
No, it really couldn't because the building is on the historic inventory.
Okay,
and
good.
So any change to that resource would have to be reviewed by the HRB.
Great, thank you.
Beth, do you want?
No, oh, sorry.
Roger.
I just thought I'd pass on a note. We've been working on a house on Richardson Court off of Ross Road, and the neighbors are, that part of Richardson is a lot of Eichler homes. So there's been a huge outpouring of complaints about our new proposed two-story home that we're working on with this couple, and actually complaints as far away as Kenneth Drive, and 8 to 10 blocks away they're complaining. Anyway, one of the letters that they received was that the fact was that Mr. Kohler is on the HRB, and he approved demolition of the Eichler buildings out at the Lucky Store. I thought, yeah, I know. That's my reaction as well.
When did you do that?
Yeah. And I thought, that the word was out that it got, apparently everyone thinks that our board approved of them demolishing that building and all this, which is totally not true at all. And somehow, because I'm on the board that approved that makes us, apparently, our design bad or something. I don't know what they were trying to say, but it's the first time in all these years that's ever, everyone's ever said anything like that.
Well, why'd you do that, Roger?
I don't.
All right, let's bring it back to HRB business here.
The point is that we seem like we're anonymous at times, but actually people do pay attention to us, which is reassuring in a way, I suppose, but.
Okay.
So picking and choosing
Yeah.
here.
Okay, let's bring it back to our agenda here. So next would be any correspondence. So, okay.
That's a correspondence.
Okay, we've already heard from board member questions, comments, and or announcements. Unless there are any other, okay, staff approvals. So, and brings us to the end of our meeting, and we
expect it to be December 4th. I'm trying to have that meeting be about the Professorville design guidelines, and so I want to bring the report and the guidelines document to that meeting. We will also have most likely another Professorville project be ready to be reviewed at that meeting.
I would imagine the Professorville guidelines hearing will be contentious and long, and might it be wise to not have more than just that on the agenda? I mean, you'll have to make that
It might be.
decision.
I know that there is one project that is still being reviewed by staff, but it could be ready by
Right.
early December.
Well,
so
I don't want to delay somebody's project, but
Right.
just I'm concerned that the last time we had a full 4-hour agenda,
right.
the board, and actually I'm the one who failed to make a good a motion that was clear, and so we had to go back and work on that, and and the project was delayed, so if we can avoid 4-hour meetings, I think that would be helpful.
I think that's, everybody wants to avoid that. I think what we can do, if we do have multiple items on that early December meeting, is just get a sense of the meeting, what's happening on that day. And if we have a full house and lots of comments, then we continue all other items on the agenda and just focus on the Professorville guidelines.
I don't want to make it a discussion, but why do you think it's contentious?
I don't know that it's contentious. I just think there'll be a lot of people who will have an opinion. Maybe that's already played out in the committee's consideration of these guidelines, but I would think this is a public opportunity to talk about it. And if in fact that was the case, I would prefer to have the project that's up first on the agenda and move those guidelines.
Oh,
Only because the guidelines aren't specific to any project yet, but somebody who's working on another project, if we miss that, then maybe they don't start for another 3 months. Just a suggestion.
Okay, we are at the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned. Thank you.